1999 and 2000, when I was in college in DC, I did a dissertation on game dogs, and I also did a dissertation on creating my own dog breed. So, and this was around the same time that this man right here was actually formulating and thinking and putting together stuff and trying, you know what I mean? In the process of me having this idea, and I handed this paper in a writing class, and the teacher loved it. He's like, man, in all my years, I've never gotten papers like this. He said, and I have a dog of my own, and I never thought this deep about it. So that was something that I planned on doing. I really, at one point in time, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna build a breed, and the presser was the dog that made me want to do that. So, Lamont, I want your introduction to be a little bit different, rather than, hey, I'm Lamont, I like dogs. Anybody could do that shit. But my question is to sit down and say, I want to start putting some dogs together. Where does that come from? Was there a dissatisfaction with the dogs that were out presently, like breed wise, not necessarily the quality of the dogs, but were you dissatisfied? Were you just not seeing what you wanted? Did you have a vision? Like, kind of like I had this vision, like, I want a dog that looks like this, and I'm not seeing it. Like, how did you formulate it? Was it by default? Was it an accident? Like, how did that happen?
Well, of course, it started off as a goal first. You know what I mean? It's something that you envision that with you, well, with me being around a lot of different breeds at an early age, and me getting to see uh, the different roles that they play as far as being individual breeds, and then not only that, me being around the different people that was crossbreeding, and not only crossbreeding but real life making programs out of the different crosses they was doing. So that inspired me to do what I did at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Trying to keep up with them at the end of the day. Like, they were super competitive with each other. You know what I mean? All friends, don't get me wrong, but in
Right.
competition, to always, every time we came out, it was always everybody wanted their dog to be the best dog out there. So with me growing up like that, I wanted to have some of my own too. And that's what really made me like, you know what, I'm gonna try to create something myself. And that's what made me really get into the research of how it's done. You know what I mean? And that's how I got to the understanding that every breed was made up of different breeds of dogs at the end of the day. You know what I mean? When you young, growing, you don't know the process of how breeds is
Right.
made and
Right.
created. So you're just thinking like, okay, well, this just came from this country or state or wherever the situation was, but not really realizing that it was a breeding program of different breeds of dogs to make this one particular dog. So with me learning that early, I took that and ran with it, and with me having the last of that old school blood that within the group of us had within Colossus. I wanted to take that as far as I possibly could because it was almost going to die off. We didn't. A lot of them dogs when they was getting old, different things happening to the dogs and stuff like that. So we was almost on the verge of losing the line at the end of the day. So once my uncle put that breeding together, that was the last of the completeness at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So I took that and made it into a thing. And luckily I picked out a good dog out the litter that was actually worth turning into something bigger than him at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So that's
Gotcha.
really how it started.
So what was the original cross? Like, what was the original dog cross that started it? Because I
Uh
remember, I think you told me, because you were like, man, my uncle had it. I don't remember if it was like an accidental breeding or it was a purposeful breeding, but you were there and you ended up getting one of the pups.
yeah, but
What
no,
what
no, it was
was that?
purposeful because
Okay.
but it's for the exact same reason that I did what I did because it was the last of the last at the
So
end
it
of
was
the
in
day.
front. So okay, I
Everything,
got you.
the
Like all that
original
was
people
tied
that we
together.
was getting dogs from,
Okay,
they was getting out of dogs. You know what I mean? When
got you.
every interview you hear me talking, you always hear me bring up Richard K and the Lisas and the Durrells. That's the original source that we was originally getting the dogs from. You know what I mean?
Got you.
As far as the exotic breeds at the time, the
Okay.
Borbles, the Corsos, the Pressers, and stuff like that. They were the ones who was bringing those dogs over. So that was our access to those breeds. But by the time I got up in age, they was out of dogs. You know, they was
Gotcha.
older when I
Right.
was a kid. You know what I
Right.
mean? So by the time I got up in age and I was eligible to go get my own dogs, they was on their way out. So I had to use what was left. You know what I mean? And luckily we had dogs that was left off of it, and I got the opportunity to get some and take it to the next level. You know what I mean? And they Richard K, he not alive no more. He died a few years back, but Lisa and girl, they still alive, and they congratulate me all the time. You know what I mean? They hit me up all the time, be like, man, I'm glad to see that you took what we was doing and took it to the next level. You turned it into your own individual thing, but you made it into something consistent. And you know what I mean? I appreciate that because they was big to me. You know what I mean? Back then, you know what I mean? I real life looked up to them. That was the first time I ever seen anybody doing that with dogs. You know what I mean? So that was
Gotcha.
amazing. And that's where all this started from them. So I always gonna make sure that I give them credit for it.
So then correct me if I'm wrong. So you took from
But oh
this
no, let me ask you a question first because you did
okay,
ask
go
me
ahead.
what was Colossus. He was
Right, I did.
Neo Boreable Pit.
Yeah.
That's the original
That
dog
was
I started
so
with.
that was the
Yeah,
original cross,
that was
right?
the original cross.
So is it safe to say that kind of like in a way, not in a just in some similar ways, like how the presser was becoming extinct and they had a few left over, and then they used those to kind of solidify the gene pools of all the cross dog. So is it in a because it's not, I guess, I mean, the presser didn't become a breed until it had the standard, I guess, just like with the Colossal Mastiff, no matter how
Exactly.
many of them that you had, or that you thought were great until you actually started like trying to, this is what we're calling a dog, this is the standard. It wasn't a Colossal Mastiff to the public.
Exactly.
So is it safe to say that you basically, I don't want to say necessarily reconstructed, but in a way it's almost like you kind of gave it a facelift in a way? Would that be a more of a correct term? Because I guess reconstructed, because this was a breed that y'all had made, whereas the presser was coming off of dogs that were coming off of dogs in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that had decades behind them, whereas this is a newer program. So it's not necessarily a reconstruction. I guess I don't know. I guess a good term would, I guess, would maybe be a facelift. I mean, regardless of what it is, what you did is amazing.
Oh yeah, I
in in
appreciate it.
in the sense, we've had many conversations about this dog, but never as deep as I would like to, because I wanted to save that,
Right.
for right now. So you said it was a Boreable Neo Pit Bull cross,
Hit.
right?
Right. Uh huh.
So that's dog, and you got this dog when he was a puppy.
Yes.
So this dog, what was it? What was it necessarily about that particular dog that wanted to make you keep going? Because that dog obviously had to have something. It had to have a lot of things.
Yeah, he had a lot of things. A lot of well, people are like within the older dogs. You know what I mean? A lot of the older dogs, they were great dogs. You know what I mean? As far as what they was bred for.